So this video is going to be a response video to one of the comments that I got yesterday on yesterday's video. Yesterday's video sparked a lot of discussions, a lot of ideas, lots of opinions, which I very much love. I absolutely love all of this stuff. I love talking about it. I love discussing it. Whether I'm right or wrong, or whether you're right or wrong, or whatever the situation is, I purely love thinking about this, brainstorming this. This is one of those things that we have tried to make a science out of, but it really isn't a hard science. It's one of those things that you can't get maths involved purely, and you can't end a conversation by saying, you know, this is what's happening. There's lots of different opinions. We're all different. Leverages, experiences, weaknesses, injuries, all these sorts of things. So I think it's a field of discussion like, I don't want to say no other, but it's a really juicy field because it's not a hard science essentially. So I want to go into it. Like, I wanted to write a response to this, and then I thought, then I saw other people comment as well, and I thought, my God, there's lots and lots of discussion here, and I don't want to do it injustice by simply doing a 5-liner. You really sparked some ideas, and you know, there's 119 likes on this comment, and there's many other comments who basically align themselves with this comment. So lots of people talking about it. Lots of people are having an opinion that's different to mine. I thought I'd go through and explain. I almost got a piece of paper and a pen, and I almost started writing notes and whatever, but I didn't want it to be like that. I didn't want it to be like me lecturing. I wanted to be just me kind of brainstorming and responding as I read these comments. But before I get into that, I want to show you guys what I did today. Worked with some front squats today. I have started on the quest to address the glutes. So not every day is going to be a glute day, but every day is going to be an activation day. So today I just got some sumo deadlifts, wide stance, empty bar, and then I went to 120 kilos, and that was it. A few sets of that just to feel the glutes, feel the contraction at the top. Then I went to the front squat. So that's kind of what I did there. But all that to the side now. I don't want to forget about that because I've made videos in the past where I've forgotten to show today's squat. I want to read basically line by line the comment from yesterday, and then read the responses, and then give my opinions as I go along. I think it would be the best way to respond to these things. Okay, so Rad Reynolds 8978 18 hours ago, he writes, no, wrong conclusion. Your body assumes those positions because of an incredibly heavy ingrained movement pattern, which isn't going to break from just one session. If you want an upright squat, you're going to have to 1, elevate your heels. 2, drop the weight down significantly. 3, build it up over 10 plus sessions with the new form. You cannot implement a change like that with your level of experience and expect it to kick in immediately. So my immediate thought about that was automatically my mind went straight to the start of the squat every day and journey. And even before that, I have been battling with these thoughts for probably in excess of 7 years. I've been doing this squat every day journey for about 4 of them. I just want to say that I've spent, I want to say, without going into the journal, which is up there, probably in excess of 3 years in the Ramaleos, Nike Ramaleo 2s. So this is not a scenario where, you know, I've elevated my heels for the first time and I don't like the thing and I moved away from it. No, I've spent lots of time. In fact, I want to say, I'm probably wrong, but I want to say the first 100 or so days of this squat everyday journey was spent in the heels, in the Ramaleos 2s. So when I say to you that I've tried the elevated heels, your first point, I've tried it. It wasn't 10 plus sessions. It was in excess of 50 sessions. So I know exactly how it feels, and the thought pattern. In fact, yesterday, I wanted to link the video, which I was talking about yesterday, which was the comparison video where it was like split screen. Here I'm doing Converse, here I'm doing the heels, the ROM 2s, and side by side footage, same day, same strength, same everything, and the torso angle was basically the same. And this is like after long period of practice. So it's not, elevating the heels in itself and your third point, build it up over 10 sessions. I feel like I've done that in the past, even though yesterday's session probably didn't show that really well because I've spent 3 years with flats. So I can see your point, but I want to say, historically speaking, I have spent a very long time in Romaleos, and the pattern was always the same. Every single time I would grind away. Every single time the things got heavy, if I'm doing a set of 30, set of 20, set of 40, automatically start to buckle over, buckle over. Your second point, which is drop the weight significantly, I agree with you there. If I drop the weight significantly and I just work with 60, 50, 40% weight, I can force myself into that movement pattern for a long period of time, right? Before I start to fatigue, whatever the thing is, we'll discuss that later, whatever the thing is that is at fault. So all of these points, I feel like I've been there, I've done that. I just want to say that I've bounced back and forth between these two teams of opinions, whether it's the glutes, whether it's the hip, whether it's the quads, whether it's wide or narrow stance, many times. I've been part of both teams. I've been jumping over the fence a long period of time. So I know, and I've implemented basically for the last 18 months, anterior chain's the problem. I need quads, I need upright, and I've done lots of different things to address that. And I haven't really found any progress in the last 2 years. In fact, the last time I had progress was when I made this conclusion, the current conclusion as of yesterday, which is posterior chain. Smashed the hell out of the posterior chain in every freaking which way, and I found some progress, not just in the squat, but also in the deadlift. So I've dedicated a lot of time in this kind of way. Maybe not as 100% as you saying, dropping the weight on whatever, even though I've had periods where I've many times said, sub 50 or sub 50% of your 1 rep max weight is the best way to get stronger. So I've done lots of these things, and every single time I get to the heavy weight, I buckle and, I go into the movement pattern that I always go into. So a lot of people read this comment, they were like, the phone just cut out, but let's keep marching on. I realized it basically immediately, so I haven't lost my train of thought. So lots of people have agreed with the comment. 119 people are basically agreeing with the same thing, and probably there's more. Probably lots and lots of people that watched yesterday's video like, no, you're wrong conclusion. The very next thought that I have about all this before I start reading the replies is that this idea of what's weak, what isn't. Number one, I want to say that when I say I have weak something, it's not weak based upon the general population. It is weak relative to me. So when I say I have weak glutes, it doesn't mean a 12-year-old girl has stronger glutes than me. My glutes are very strong. I'm at a level that I can deadlift and squat and all these sorts of things. When I say I have weak glutes, I'm talking about in relation to all the other body parts of my body. What is the weakest thing? What is the rate limiting step? That's what I mean when I say weak. So when I say weak glutes, there's a few things that come to mind immediately. Flood through the freaking skull straight away of all the different ideas in that little pocket, in that box in my brain that says weak glutes. First and foremost, anterior pelvic tilt. Anterior pelvic tilt. If there's been one constant in my life, ever since I remember for myself, ever since I played basketball, ever since all the back pains, all of the things that have kind of led to me to go into strength training, it's been the anterior pelvic tilt. It's kind of been the bane of my existence. Once upon a time, that anterior pelvic tilt caused me lots of back pain. Every morning I'd wake up and I've got excruciating lower back pain because I'm sleeping with massive anterior pelvic tilt. And there was a point in time where I couldn't fall asleep without going on my belly. So anterior pelvic tilt on steroids, always hurting. So anterior pelvic tilt, if you can imagine that, and I'm sure we all know what it means, it is a posture which is like a cross syndrome, if you will, which is the lower back arching, it's part of a whole other host of all other, I'm thinking about a word, compensations is what I wanted to say. So you have a arched back, your ass is sticking that way, shoulders around and forward, neck is sticking out like this, and you're walking like that, right? And you're on your tippy toes a lot of the time. A lot of the time, your feet are externally rotated and you're walking like this. So it's not just the lower cross syndrome. There's an upper cross syndrome as well. That's all kind of locked in together. So when you start to look at the upper and the lower cross syndrome, that phenomenon, it's basically a list of short muscles and a list of weak muscles, list of tight muscles. And if you go from your head all the way down to your toes and you list what's tight, what's not, you'll see that there's two teams. Do you start addressing the anterior chest, the anterior deltoids? Where do you start to address the problem? I've always been of the mindset that the best way to start addressing the problem is at the biggest players in the game. The glutes are probably agreed upon to be the strongest muscles in the body. It would be reasonable for you to say, if I got my glutes really, really, really strong, like absolutely strong, stronger than any other body part in my body, it's on, it's activated, it's firing, it's strong, it's mind muscle connected, all of that stuff. It would be very, very hard for me to imagine a place, a scenario where you would have this thing, these glutes firing in all cylinders, and the hip flexors being very, very tight still. Just imagine, you know, I don't know what to get. Like, it's like, you know, these are the glutes, and this is a hip flexor. If these guys start fighting, who do you reckon is going to win? This is the glutes, one of the biggest muscles in the body. This thing is going to lose, meaning that it's going to go into a lengthened position while this is going into a relatively resting, shorter position. So automatically I think to myself, if you want to address the anterior pelvic tilt, get your glutes on board, on the map, on the radar, and you have the pelvis sorted. And then when you get the pelvis sorted, the rest of your lollipop, which is the spine and the head, we're a lollipop, nervous system, a head, brain, spinal cord, we're just a floppy lollipop. All of that's going to start to balance out, right? Because your hips are now underneath you. They're not behind you. They're not at the back of you. So then all of a sudden your shoulders start to sink back because your hips are underneath you. When the hips go into anterior pelvic tilt, you start to go this way and like that because your hips are behind you. You're finding your balance. So like this when the glutes contract. You can stand up right now and play with your positioning now, and you'll see that that's the case. So when I go into a squat, which is basically a posture with added weight on top of me, I'm trying to go through a range of motion here with added weight on top of me. And I go from a standing position to an ATG to up. So a lot of people are saying the reason why you're going to a good morning squat is because you have weak quads. It's not the glutes. The thought is that when you hit that middle ground, when you hit that universal sticking point, the body knows we can't overpower this, so we're going to shift all of the forces into the posterior chain because the glutes and the posterior chain is really, really strong. It's going to overpower it. I used to think that as well. But entertain this idea. Entertain a concept where you have something that is really, really strong and it's pushing really, really hard. And that something is the quads. You go into the deep ATG position, you start to come out of the position, and you're pushing with your quads as hard as you can. Oh, you're pushing. What do you think is going to happen in that scenario? The knees are going to want to extend. You are very strong in the quads. The knees are going to want to extend, and what's going to happen is you're going to start to lean over as you're extending, and as you extend your knees and not the back, not the hips. Imagine it kind of like perfect. Let me put it to you like this. Imagine this: you are standing in a perfectly upright position, and you're clenching everything to the max. And I come in with a scalpel, sharp scalpel, and I come in and I slice both of your glutes, all of the insertion, all of the glutes are just cut. Right, boom. I sever all of the glutes at the same time. Boom. you basically have no glutes. What do you think happens to the body when that happens? If everything else is constant, what you will have is that you will break at the hips, right? You will break at the hips and you just fall over. Let's say we slice the hamstrings as well. All of the hip extensors we slice, so they can't act upon the skeleton. What you would have is just the body would just flop forward. The knees are not buckling because the quads are really, really tight. Everything else is tight. Everything is tight. So the knees are going to be extended. Your upper back is going to fall over because there's nothing extending the hips. Right? All of the hip extensors we've sliced. So you would have a body that just falls like this, falls over. Now, let's do the other extreme. Same thing. You're standing perfectly upright, and I come in and I slice your quads. What do you think the body's going to do in that sense? How is the body going to collapse in that sense? You would just fall like this. Your knees would just buckle, and you will fall with a perfectly upright back. You would just go kind of like I hate to mention it, but that's the thought that I had, like the towers, the 9/11 towers, right? Remember how they fell? Like an elevator, whether that's real or not, or whether that was a demolition job or whatever the conspiracies are. Falling like this. The knees are buckled underneath. You have no quads. You have nothing extending the knees. Therefore, you are just falling this way, right? That's how I'm thinking about it. When I'm squatting, I'm not falling straight down. I'm falling forward. This is what I'm doing. I'm falling this way, right? So in my mind, I'm like, okay, I understand both sides. I was part of that team, but now I'm thinking to myself, okay, I'm falling forward, which means that my glutes are not preventing me from falling forward. So my glutes need to be stronger to avoid that posture. That's how I'm thinking about it. It makes no other sense to me to think, no. What's happening there is your quads are really, really weak. So the body's running away from that and putting it to the glutes. Well, if the glutes were really, really strong, why are we so freaking bent over, man? The number one thing with the glutes is to extend us. Why are we so freaking bent over, man? Now, the other team would say, no. What's happening there is the body knows your quads are weak. So we're sending all of the forces to the back where it's really strong. And so we're constantly doing a good morning. If the glutes are really, really strong, why are they not overcoming? Like I'm thinking to myself, when something contracts, it gets shorter. Why would the muscle get longer? Because when we go into a good morning, we are, you're going from a shortened state, shortened glutes, to longer glutes, right? So I'm falling forward. This is what I'm choosing to think right now. I understand everyone in the comments who are saying, dude, it's not your glutes. It's your quads. It's a positioning, whatever. And that's the other thing which people have touched on. Anyway, let me keep going because I'll get triggered by other comments. Not triggered, but reminded about some other things. Asoni3531 says, true. Probably no one else in the world has ingrained a movement pattern for 1,500 days in a row like me. And then Rob Pontney, 601, I'm probably butchering all these nicknames, all these tags, but yes, he says, yes, 100% agree with Rad's comments. Oh crap, why did I do that? Oh man, give me one sec. I took screenshots of where is her YouTube? She doesn't even watch YouTube. How can you not watch YouTube, man? Damn. I took screenshots, sent it to my Mrs. Phone, and I was reading. I don't know why I did that. I can freaking just go on YouTube and do it this way. Silly man. Anyway, so Rob says, now that I've clicked to see the full comment, 100% agree with Rad. Also, a 25 kilo plate is way too much heel elevation. This will not allow for balanced upright position. I think Ivan has the wrong conclusion here. I hope he takes this comment on board. I hear you, Rob. I know exactly what you're talking about. It's way too steep, and that's why I'm falling forward, which definitely could be an element. But in order for me to have clear results, it's very, very hard to go middle ground because the results get murky. I want to go from one extreme to another. Like, okay, fully flat, fully elevated. What are the movement patterns? Fully flat, I'm bending over. Fully elevated, I'm bending over. Maybe for different reasons, because I'm way too heel elevated. So that definitely could be a thing. Definitely, in the last 3 years, I haven't been really good with heel elevation. So definitely I'm not as confident in those positions like I used to be. But I'm like I said before, I've been there for years in elevated heels, and it was always the same pattern. Whatever the heel was doing, elevated in ROM 2s, I was falling forward just like I was falling forward in yesterday's video. Execution Somer says, yeah, that's what I thought too. Although I think he's right about it being probably very difficult to properly engage the glutes from an ATG position. I don't think his glutes are weak, by no means. It's just that in that particular sequence, they don't fire when they should. Anyway, working on glutes is never a bad thing in the end. I think his conclusion, he's right. Smash the posterior chain, but also hip flexes core to avoid APT. Execution Somer, we'll find out. I guess we'll find out for the next foreseeable future. I'm going to continue to do the things that I've been doing, although less frequently, because I'm getting burnt out with the power cleans and benching and all that sort of stuff. But I will have my accessories focused solely on the glutes, and we'll see what happens. I have history in my favor, knowing what I've been through with the RDLs and whatever. Like, all my really successful periods have been when I've made this type of diagnosis and I've gone forward. So I think I will have success, because the last 18 months I was on the opposite team. Maybe the 101 likes on this comment, I was on your team, and I got nowhere. I got nowhere because the glutes never really got the attention. Deep down in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, probably what I should be doing is more deadlift every day. Deadlift every single day. I remember when I was doing 260s freaking 3 times a week on the deadlift, I felt strong. My squats were moving really well. I was, doing really, really well. Then I waited away from that, went into Hindu squats, went into all that stuff, and slowly but surely all of those effects from the heavy posterior chain have decayed, and now I'm in a situation where the glutes are asleep and I'm constantly falling forward. So I need to teach the body how to fight the falling forward, which in my opinion is hip extension. So lots of squatting every day means lots of quad work and lots of pushing. I need more pulling. It's an old thing. I've been here before. I'm sick to my stomach from the bipolar nature of my discussions and my thought patterns when it comes to all of this, because I've been here multiple times. But I think posterior chain is the way to go. So execution, Somer, you got a point there. White Nosy says false, lol. Can implement a change in 1 rep. How much do y'all squat anyway? I think he's trolling a little bit there. Next one is XOR DAS. Exactly. I finally feel the weight distribution in your feet. With the correct distribution of weight, you never can lean that much forward. Wrap something around the barbell and keep in contact with your rack the whole time with light weight to get a feeling of how it should feel. So if I was to do that right now, if I was to do that, I would literally fall backwards. If I was to, have the bar right against the rack and go up and down with it, perfectly middle of the foot. If I went down, I'd fall back, or whatever the reason that is. A lot of people would just say that's straight up ankles, but it doesn't seem to be, because even if I elevate my feet, I have trouble being in that position. Probably limited hip flexion, passive hip flexion ability. Maybe there's other few things, maybe internal hip rotation. T-Mac Rocket 23 says, completely agree with the comment. Ivan's always been the practice your craft. This is a skill type of guy. Can't unlearn after 10 years of doing this way. To that, I say I've been Ramaleo's for years as well. And the same movement patterns were there as well. I remember way back when, way before squat every day, I got frustrated with falling forward, and I read the general bro knowledge on the internet, and everyone's opinion was elevate your heels. I elevated my heels and I was still falling forward, but I still continued, and I still kept falling forward. So that was not a cure for me. V Redneck TV says 100% this. Instead of going back to basics and reevaluating the starting position, which is far from being optimal for a number of reasons, always has been, he, for some reason, turns his attention to a completely unrelated thing. Typical Ivan, I guess. Same thing with his weightlifting endeavor, trying to fix things that don't need to be fixed instead of focusing on basics. As for Ivan's squat though, start wearing ROMs, roll down the bar like 5 to 10 millimeters down more on the traps rather than the base of the neck. Adopt a wider stance. Make sure to distribute the weight through the whole foot. Keep the chest open through the whole foot. Keep the chest open. Gaze forward. Try to keep the wrist as vertical as possible. And just like that, the squat is fixed. So you want me to do a low bar squat. It's funny you say that because a low bar squat is easier on the glutes. Let me explain. What reduces when you slide the bar from your high bar to your low bar? The moment arm between the glutes and that bar. So there's typically less requirement for those hip extensors to overcome. The lever is less. If I got a really long fishing rod, it's freaking really hard to maneuver it. If the fishing rod is this long, easy. So this is why one of the reasons why we can all squat better, more weight with low bar is because the glutes have less, the pituitary chain has less to work with. That's one of the reasons, right? So when you go low bar, wide stance with your feet, all you're really doing is favoring the muscles in the glutes. All of the extensors, the hips. The lever becomes less. External rotation of the femur becomes, so the glutes are in a shortened state. You know, they're wider, externally rotated, so they're in a shorter state. So easier to contract a short muscle than a freaking fully lengthened out muscle like it is in an ATG squat. And the levers are shorter. So then you have a scenario where the work is shorter and the positioning is making the muscle work easier. So that's what I think about that. I'm not going to want to do a low bar. Straight up, that's not what I want to do. I don't know how these two comments that you've written here, how they relate to each other. The weightlifting and low bar. I mean, how can you squat low bar and do weightlifting? The Bob Man 69, 100% need to give them a number of sessions. The hips work entirely different. That is true. I can't deny that. You know, it's been a long time since I've done it. I'll take that. You know, it's a shock to the system, but I have history with heels. The Bomb Man has another comment. I honestly almost fucked off all his shoes, hated them. Now I love them. Sadly, Ivan bought the ROM 4s. I think the ROM 2s that I bought, which I like, but a lot of people have utter disdain for them. He should buy himself a slightly less aggressive pair, Powerlift 3s or tier 1s. Also need to get his head up more, let the chest come through, which in itself is hard to do without all these shoes, and take a number of sessions. I'm not sure about the shoes. I remember when I was buying the shoes, I was looking up all the heel measurements. I think Addy Powers, I don't know which number, but it was between Addy Powers and ROM 2s. I went for ROM 2s because it had a high heel and a wider foot. I have wider feet. So I did that. The number one reason why I don't like them is because I feel like I'm wearing bricks. I need something to be more freaking pliable, man. I need something that's more like a shoe and not less like a brick. So I don't mind the heel, let's say, as much as I don't like going clop, 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 clop with every freaking step I make. I don't want that. It pisses me off. So these are the reasons why I don't like the ROM 2s. Maybe that's what you're saying as well. They're really, really extreme. Another comment by him: to be hypercritical, it doesn't sound like Ivan could achieve hip extension in a sprint in his current form, which is also likely why he's getting folded for want of a better word in the squat. Yeah, I reckon right now if I started sprinting, I'll probably tear the quad because I'm in anterior pelvic tilt. So if I was to sprint and I would go like this quad here would just tear because I'm forcing it to extend beyond its capability. And then Marchery says, exactly, body needs time to adapt to new patterns. You always said that, Ivan, don't forget that. Use all these shoes, wide stance, and give it a time. Yeah, the whole time aspect of, squatting on a plate, that I can see. Definitely, it's too much too soon. I understand that. But I got the stimulus, I got the feedback that I needed to make the decision because I already have all this history behind it. It's not like I never wore heels before. I spent a lot of time in heels. way before the videos even started, before you guys even discovered me, I was wearing ROMs. The reason why I got off ROMs was because of hip pain. The moment I took off ROMs and I went into flats, I found my hip pain to be better. And you can go back to day 150 odd, probably around there. I took the ROMs off because the hip pain was killing me. And as soon as I went to flats, I felt like it was a lot better. Probably because the glutes got more activated. Probably. But yeah, since then I stuck with it. Actually, yeah, it was shortly before I moved into this house. I reckon that was the timing. So 3 years ago. Yeah. So I don't know, maybe 100 days, 200 days into the squat every day. That's when I made the swap. So, oh, there's another comment. 21 minutes ago, James Techman. I haven't read this one yet. Pretty simple. He goes, pretty simple. You increase the moment arm on the knee quite significantly. That's true. The quads were required to produce more force, but unable to do so alone at such loads. The body will choose to reduce the moment arm and increase the moment arm around the hip where there is mechanical advantage. Yeah, I mean, everyone says that. I always thought that as well. The body will go where the body can go. Number one, I want to, I forgot to mention this. Oh my God, it's so complex. 99% of the people out there, 99% of the people out there will have a stronger deadlift than a squat. Which means the human body, unless it's severely huge, like a beast, 200 kilos, 150 kilos, big gut, really, really short arms, most people, apart from those people, will have a stronger deadlift than a squat, which means when things get really, really hard, we're going to go into the posterior chain. And then we're going to grind. And we're going to fight. And we're going to grind. We're going to fight. And we're going to complete the lift. But what happens in the scenario where you don't grind it? So if you said to me, the force will go into the posterior chain, you'll finish the lift. I don't finish the lift though. Greg Knuckles wrote extensively about this, and he said, you're going to go into the posterior chain regardless of if you're quad or glute dominant. You're always going to end up in your anatomically advantageous position, which is the posterior chain. Like I said, most of us are going to grind through the posterior chain. When the quads fail, we go there. Okay, so the quads fail, we go there. That's the natural rhythm. But what if we fail there as well? The glutes couldn't overcome it. The posterior chain couldn't overcome it. So what are we saying with that? If I failed my 210 kilo squat, and you guys know how I fail my squats, everyone says it's too easy. The reason why it's too easy is because the moment my quads fail, it's over. I can't grind. I've never been able to grind, which means the posterior chain can't bail me out. So when you go for full upright into full this, and then you quickly drop the bar, that means the posterior chain, the natural last step in your fight, can't do it. Now, if that was a scenario where I would go into the lean and then grind out, then you can say it's the weak quads. But I can't grind. The absence of grinding means that as soon as the quads fail, I'm finished. I'm finished. I can't grind. Even the 210 kilo, 220 kilo, they looked easy, right? They looked easy because the quads finished the job, started the job and finished the job. And you can see, if you go back to 212 and a half, you'll see I start to buckle at the upper back, even though I'm upright. Or the mid back. So I know what you're saying, but if that was true, I will be able to grind, but I can't grind. And then very next thing is, well, you can deadlift 265 kilos, so clearly you have the posterior chain. That thought has served me for a very, very long time as the reason why I thought the quads were weak. I think there's more to that. This is something that's not clear in my mind, but I feel like in my deadlift position, the deadlift position and the squat positions are very, very different. Very, very, very different. This is where my theory gets challenged. And what ends up happening in my mind when I throw this in is I think to myself, in a deadlift, the shoulders are fully rounded over. So I'm like this. I'm not like this. I'm fully rounded over. And I've always felt the moment I get to my knees, I can extend. I can extend. If the bar gets to my knees, I can extend. At the bottom, I can't. I always struggle off the floor. So that's why I always said I have quad weakness. The way I think about it right now is that I think my glute hip extensors are stronger than my glute external rotators. In a squat, you need hip extension and external rotation. These are your knees, right? They're going up and down straight when you squat. When you go into an ATG squat, and then you come out and you come into that universal sticking point, and your glute medius and minimus start to fail, what happens is that your knees start to buckle in. When your knees start to buckle in, what happens? We've all seen it. Knees buckle in means that the effective length of that femur in that moment becomes longer. When we have external rotation of the legs, when they go fully out, when you look at it from the side, our femurs are shorter for that moment. When they start to buckle inwards or knee valgus, that effectively femur gets longer. We start to lean over, knees go back, and you go into a good morning. So when I say glutes, I internally in my mind, I'm thinking the glute medius is very, very weak, and this is why, this is the driver. So so it's the glute weakness, but really it's the glute medius. That's what I've identified. And that's why I think my squats suffer, but my deadlifts are really good. In the deadlift, there's less requirement for the glute med and more requirement for the glute max because I start with such a high hip position. I never go into an ATG position. So at the high hip position, there's very limited knee valgus moment arms. It's all glute max and extend. So I've got strong glute max, but really, really weak glute medius, which will probably be supported by the fact that I'm really, really weak in a wide stance and I'm really weak in a wide stance squats and sumo deadlifts. So this is kind of like a whole run around. Oh my God, it's a 30 minutes long video. This is my explanation. Obviously, it's very hard to monologue all my thoughts in a video like this, but hopefully I've explained to a satisfied extent of what I think about all of this. And that comment was great, really thought-provoking. All the people that commented, really thought-provoking, and I feel like it betters me when I get challenged like this. Obviously, if you fellas were here and we're having a beer, we could probably explore these ideas a bit more. It's not very easy to monologue these thoughts like this. And I'm sure as soon as I end the video and walk off, I'll be like, I didn't say this. But anyway, I'm getting a sore throat actually right now after 30 minutes of talking. It's full on. Anyway, I'll leave it at that, boys. Curious to see how many made it to the end of the video, how many agree with my thoughts. I suspect a lot of you will still deny my conclusion that is correct. But I've had success with this diagnosis, and I'm looking forward to the next few months of me absolutely obliterating the glutes, the hamstrings, the lower back. Appreciate you guys. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.